All right, so hello everybody. Thanks for coming to class. My name is Ben Gromiko. I'm from InterNACHI. That's the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. We're the world's largest organization of home inspectors. And today's class is about how to find major defects during a home inspection. And it's Tuesday, April 25th. And if you need to contact me, I'm on the contact page with every other staff member on InterNACHI. We're all there. And it's at that URL on the slide, nachi.org/contact. So we're all there. And our pictures are there too if you want to take a look. This class is being hosted by NACHI TV. So that's where we put all of these free online live interactive classes. It's at nachi.tv. www.nachi.tv. Go there, and we record every class that we do. We do a class a month or so. And today's class is about how to find defects. Basically, we're going to go through a home inspection that I performed a while back, and we'll see how I found all the defects in this home. And maybe you can glean some information from it, hopefully. That's the value I want to bring to you. You may be new, you may be a veteran inspector, certified master inspector, certified professional inspector, but there's always value I found throughout my entire career of essentially following someone else and seeing how they do a home inspection. Because your ultimate goal is to be able to communicate your observations to your client, and those observations may include indications of defects. And I always got a lot of fun in being able to find those defects for my clients so that they don't have to find them when they move in, which is okay. Sometimes that happens. So we're going to inspect this house. And this house is in a cold climate. It's in southeastern Pennsylvania. And I inspected it. It took about 3 hours to do. It's a bit of a long one because of all the defects in it and interesting systems. And you'll take a look at that. So again, this class is being recorded. If you have to leave, no problem. I'll get it up on nachi.tv soon in a couple of days, and I'll send you that link. If you have any technical problems, like the system turns off on you, no problem. It'll come back. What you want to do is just click that link. Be patient for a little bit. It may come back automatically, or click that link so that you can get back into the class again. And if you wanted to ask questions, bottom right corner, you should see a little chat area, and you can ask questions during class or after class, and that'll work out as well. So let's take a look. Looks like everybody can see and hear me. That's good. I can't see you, I can't hear you, but you can ask questions. All right, so how do I find defects in this house? How do I find defects here? Well, what I do is I tend to show up early, and I don't want to enter the house, really. I'll knock on the door, ring the doorbell, introduce myself. Hopefully no one's there. The seller isn't there, and I even beat the listing agent often. So I want to get there because I want some time to step back and look. So what defects do you see when you step back and look? That's my first advice to you. Don't go right into the kitchen and start inspecting and talking. Step back and look. Do you see anything at this house that catches your eye? Here's the back side. It also has a garage. There's a driveway and the truck to the garage. I don't clog up the driveway for my clients or my agents, so I park at the street, and that's a 3-foot cone that I put at the back of my truck so that no one parks right up against my bumper, because I carry tall ladders to every inspection. I exceed the standards of practice. You're not required to carry ladders. You're not required to walk upon any roof surface, but you are required to inspect the roof. So I park at the curb, and my company name was Peach Inspections, P-E-A-C-H, like the fruit. So at this house again, what are your concerns? So if you wanted to type in your concerns, just from stepping back and looking, I'll show you a few things, give you an idea. I'm concerned about the slope of the ground surrounding the house and the gutters and the downspouts. I quickly see that I'm missing downspouts that are discharging water far enough away from the house, and the lot is essentially flat. That's my concern. I also have an old structure I can see around this area here. This porch is an old structure that is hit by a lot of weather, and a lot of the components of that structure are made out of wood. So that's my concern. Second concern is I'm not sure if I can walk on this roof because it's steep, but I'll give it a try. Maybe I can come out one of the attic's windows I can see to get up on the roof, because I like to get up on the roof. Again, according to the standards of practice for performing a general home inspection, you're not required to walk upon any roof surface. So we're going to talk about the standards of practice and how you use the standards of practice to your advantage to find defects in a home. But stepping back, I don't like this oil storage tank. Now, for folks in other areas that are not cold or freezing, this is an oil storage tank. It's crazy. It's a big tank, 500-gallon tank, 750-gallon tank, and you fill it up with fuel oil that we mine from the ground, pump from the ground, and we pump it into a heating system that ignites that oil and heats a heat exchanger for a furnace, or it heats water for a boiler system. The other concern is the siding in contact being close with the grating, and the grating being flat, and the downspouts not diverting water away. And the slope of the roof, I can't get up there maybe. Those are my concerns in this structure, again, being wood. So those are my concerns when I step back and look. Another concern here is the bush and vegetation, especially in the inside corner of a structure. I want to get in there. I want to get my face, my hand, my camera, my tools in that area, and I can't. That's my concern here. And a lot of things are blocked and blocked. Corners are great. I want to go underneath that bush to get there. And I'm concerned about the low clearance. There is some clearance, but not much, particularly when the grading is flat. And I'm not concerned about these cosmetic staining issues. Not at all. I want to know the condition of the roof. So I'm going to try to get up there and take a look around. So one of the ways you can find defects in a home is you step back and look. I've got a pole. Let's see what the pole is. So what system do you inspect first? And you select one of the following: roof, exterior, HVAC, foundation, or other. So what systems do you inspect first? I'll tell you what I do first. I get up on the roof because I'm there early. I try to beat everybody. My client, the agent, wake up the seller, I don't mind. I do an 8 o'clock and a 12 o'clock inspection, and I try to get there early, and I try to get up on the roof because I'm the only person who's supposed to be up on the roof anyways. I don't take my client up there, and that's the toughest, most dangerous part, right? So I want to do the roof, but you can do whatever. So I'm interested. All right, looks like we have 80% of you voted. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So here's the results. Roof and exterior, excellent. That's pretty good. I like that because the roof and the exterior are the first parts of the standards of practice. And the standards of practice is a guide for me. It guides the way I perform an inspection, and it tells me what to inspect and what not to inspect. And what I inspect, I'm looking for the defects in the things that I inspect. Not really concerned about things that are outside the scope of my inspection. So that, frees up a lot. To know what the standards of practice is and to know what systems are within the standards of practice and to know what you're required to inspect really allows you to focus on the things that are important to you and your client. And you realize that there are a lot of things beyond your scope that you're not responsible for, right? So there could be things, defects, major defects, that are beyond the scope of your inspection, and that's okay. For example, this house, let's say this house has a septic system, an underground drainage system where all the sewage and effluent goes, right? Maybe it's failed. That's beyond my scope of it as a home inspector. So I'm not required to inspect the septic system. And if there are major defects there, it's beyond the scope of my home inspection. So if someone comes in later and says, why didn't you see that major defect in the septic system? I can refer to the standards of practice. The standards of practice tells everybody, my client, the agents, the seller, the judge, what I'm required to inspect and not required to inspect. So everything starts with the standards of practice, right? It guides me through the home, guides my inspection, and it also allows me to use the standards of practice as a template for my software and an outline for my inspection report. So the standards of practice is a pretty cool thing. And here, we'll go to the standards of practice. So the first two sections of the standards, let's see if I can pop it up. My highlighter. There we go. Yeah. So the first two sections of the standards of practice is roof and exterior. So most of you inspect those first two systems. And that's great. You don't have to follow the standards of practice as a guide through your inspection. I do. I tend to use the standards of practice. I inspect the roof first. It works out well for me to get there early. And it's also just coincidental, the first section of the standards. And the next would be exterior. It just makes a little bit sense to me. Some inspectors start in the kitchen, and that's good too. It really doesn't matter. What really matters is that you follow the standards, that you hit every system and component that's listed in the standards, right? And you understand this definition of what a material defect is. So a material defect is a specific issue, a problem, a concern with a system or component of a residential property that may have a significant adverse impact on the value of the property or poses an unreasonable risk to people. All right? And you are to write a home inspection report which shall identify defects within systems and components defined by the standards of practice that are both observed and deemed material by the inspector. So, are you required to find every defect in a home? I'll leave that question for you, and we'll answer it for sure. Are you required to find every defect in the home? So I want you to see this URL. It's kind of long, I apologize, but it's a great article about exceeding the standards of practice. So if you're thinking about finding all the defects in a home, you may want to exceed the standards of practice. It's your choice. But there's some advice that I'd like to share with you. A couple of things that I want to do before we get into the meat of the inspection, so to speak. This article was written by Nick Amico, founder of InterNACHI, and Mark Cohen, General Counsel of InterNACHI. And it says, of course, every inspection must, at a minimum, substantially meet the requirements of the standards of practice. If an inspector fails to comply with the SOP, the customer would have valid claims against the inspector for breach of contract. Therefore, when in doubt about what the SOP requires in a particular situation, the inspector should err on the side of caution and exceed what the SOP requires. It's better to do a little more than what may be required than to do less and risk a potential claim and harm your reputation. But there is a problem with that. If you exceed the standards of practice for one client, essentially you should for all clients. And that's what I did. I actually marketed that I carried tall ladders in order to get up on roofs, and I would try to get up on every roof. I treated every client the same way in relation to the standards. One more URL I want to share with you. It's at nachi.org/everything. And if you're interested in a checklist or sample inspection reports to see how other inspectors write their reports and how they not only found the defects, but wrote about the defects that they found, go to nachi.org/everything and step 11, which is report writing. So let's go there. So this is the page. We have 15 steps for success as a home inspector. And whether you're new or a veteran inspector, these steps are pretty good to go over and follow. And we try to put everything here. If you're looking for anything on the NACHI site, it's so big, we try to reduce it down to 15 things that you should be concerned about. And step 11 is report writing on software. And the first two links you may be interested in: home inspection report checklists for all kinds of types of inspections, and home inspection sample reports if you want to take a look at how other inspectors describe the defects that they found during an inspection. All right, enough of that. Let's do an inspection at this house, and let's talk about how to find major defects. How's that sound? Vegetation, dark patches, slopes, no slope. Awesome. Jamie, you start in the kitchen? Good. It's not weird. It's that's why you asked. It's you choose what you want to do. Just follow the standards of practice, and not necessarily in sequence with the systems and the chapters, sections of the standards, but make sure you abide by the standards of practice in total, in general. So looks like I got up on the roof. I'll show you where I put my ladder. And what I do to find defects in a home is I exceed the standards of practice. Again, you're not required according to the standards to walk upon any roof. I did on this home. And when I'm up there, I like to do a picture of every field or plane in large and in close up. And I like to take a picture down the ridge as well. And it forces me to look closely at the alignment of the shingles, the exposure of the shingles, the fastening, the color, the pattern. And there's the porch roof on the side of the house. And there's the garage structure in the back there. So how do I find defects at the roof? I look. And one of the places that I look is I want to know how many layers of shingles there are. So I'll go to the rake side and where the drip edge is, and I'll take a look to see how many layers there are. I want to know what I'm walking on. Are there multiple layers? Is there one layer? Sometimes that'll give me an indication of age and condition. If there are multiple layers, I sometimes then that'll push me towards looking at the flashing, because I want to see that step flashing installed with the top layer of shingles. So this is one of the key areas where I look, and it gives me a really good idea as to what I'm inspecting. Without knowing the materials or the layers, I'm not sure if I have a good picture of that. So this is the one area where I hit first, if I can, if you're up there. The edges and the corners and the intersections and the penetrations of the roof is where I go to find problems. Rarely do I find problems in the field that are not obvious, right? If you find problems, and if you have a hole in the roof, you could probably see that very easily. But to find defects, you have to go into the places that are on the edge, so to speak. So how do I find defects here? Are there any defects here? There aren't. But you get trained. To know how to find defects, you have to know what a good installation looks like and what a typical bad installation may look like. What does a defect look like? Just yesterday, I took this picture. This picture will be in our roof textbook. InterNACHI has a ton of textbooks. So if you're interested in reading, we have over a dozen textbooks. And one of them is the roof course, and we update it every year. And we needed a picture of the edges of the roof, right? The drip edges. So you should, by looking at this picture, you should know if there are any defects here. If there aren't, could you at least identify what you're looking at? So on this side, let's see if I can, on this, what edge is this? What edge of the roof would you identify this to be? I'll give you a choice. It's, is it the gutter edge or is it the rake side edge, the gable edge? Is this edge on the line next to the gutter or somewhere else? Anybody? Anybody want to answer? Should this side be by the gutter or somewhere else? Just by looking at that, you should be able to tell. Okay, I would say half of you got it right. So when you have underlayment on a sloped roof, underlayment goes over the drip edge at the gutter. And underlayment on, let's say, an asphalt shingle roof, on a sloped roof, underlayment goes underneath the drip edge or trim edge on the rake side. So this is rake and this is gutter. You want everything to fall off. You want to follow the path of water. So you want that underlayment to just go right off the edge of the drip edge and go into the gutter that's installed below, right? So when you're looking, like I did, for layers of shingles on the rake edge, it's pretty easy to see because the drip edge flashing should be installed on top of the underlayment. And you should be able to look underneath the shingles and see past the edge of the flashing, and you should see underlayment. So if you don't see underlayment, that's bad. If you see shingles, that means someone has added a second layer, put an extra flashing there on top of the existing layer of shingles. And that's where you see the second layer. Because when you pull up that first layer, top layer of shingles, you should see underlayment, not more shingles. If you see more shingles, that means there's multiple layers. That's a little trick. This is in our training, in our textbooks, in our PDF downloads, in our articles, in our roof courses. So to find defects, you have to have good training. And this actually is part of the roof at the House of Horrors. We have an InterNACHI House of Horrors. It's a house built within our warehouse in our school, under our roof, an entire house with 1,000 defects. And it's part of our live training class that Jamie is coming to in May. So it should be kind of fun. So if you're interested in coming to InterNACHI for some hands-on training and try to find all the defects at the House of Horrors, that's a really good way to do it. And also, if you're looking for the online training courses, go back to that URL, remember, nachi.org/everything, and go to step 2. Let's go there now real quick. I'll show you step 2. Let's go to nachi.org/everything, and you get to this page, you can go to step 2, and training and certifications is here. And there are links to the online training courses, okay? And all of the certifications as well. And all of those courses and training courses and certifications are free and online to members of InterNACHI. So I look around and I look at anything that penetrates the roof, anything that penetrates the system, anything that goes through something else. I'm looking at it, you know? That's where I'll find the defects. That boot, that vent pipe flashing, that neoprene membrane around that vent pipe is in good shape. So are the shingles. The shingles themselves are in great shape. They were installed well. I'm not concerned about the cosmetic black algae. I wouldn't even wash it off. That's what you get in an area that has a lot of rain and vegetation as well. And there's my roof ladder, roof access and the ladder. That's how I like to do it at the gable edge. If you're at the gutter, you want to go above 3 feet above the top of your ladder should go above the roof surface. But that's how I like to do it. And I put those pictures in my report so that everybody who is looking at my inspection report knows that I carry tall ladders and I like to get up on the roof. And that's kind of like my brand. So even while I'm inspecting for defects, I'm thinking of my brand and marketing. So I find defects by getting up close. So I went up on the roof, I got up close to the chimney stack, and I don't like this wash. It's called a wash. You can call it a crown, a masonry top, the top of the chimney stack. You can't see it from the ground. You can't see it from the gutter edge. I can see it if I get up close. You can get up close to anything that you're required to inspect within the standards of practice. That's where you want to get. You want to use your hand. If you can touch it, that's about as close as you want to get. But you want to get up there. So how do you find defects here? Getting up close. So those cracks need to be repaired at the flashing, where the flashing was grouted into the mortar joint, and at the corner where it's cracking, it's absorbing moisture and blowing out, probably during the winter thaw. And that is cracking. The cement parging, the coating with the flashing is a critical area. So this isn't going very well. This flashing was used and reused without being pulled out. That is the original flashing, and I want that flashing to be pulled out because it has more holes in it than Swiss cheese, and it really shouldn't. Now it's not really a counter flashing. Counter flashing goes over step flashing. So step is stepped with the shingles, and the step flashing has a lot of edges that need to be covered, and that's counter flashing. This counter flashing is in really poor shape. And it wasn't even installed. So somebody tried to install two types of counter flashing. The white aluminum, the painted white aluminum, is counter flashing that was installed to make it look pretty, but it's not installed properly because water can penetrate in the wrong way. Imagine water coming down the shingle, drip, coming down here and going behind this flashing and then getting stuck and then going into the structure itself. So I know all of this because I've done a lot of inspections in School of Hard Knocks. No, you take training to get knowledge and then you apply that knowledge. You find a mentor, a training class, House of Horrors, where we have an entire house to inspect over and over again, and you apply the knowledge that you gain. So you can find defects and use the standards of practice to follow your guide, guide your inspection. And when you use the standards of practice, defects tend to pop out at you because you have the knowledge to look for things that are installed properly. You know how flashing is installed properly, and you're following the standards of practice. Oh, now it's time to look at flashing around the chimney. Okay, as required by the standards, I'm looking at flashing, and you have the training backing you up, and problems just pop after a while. It's that easy sometimes. So this flashing is in poor shape. So I called that out. All the silicone and sealant on top of really good flashing is unnecessary. You never should see sealant really as the primary method of diverting water away from a flashing area. So the crown is cracked. And then while I'm up there, why not? Are you required to look in the flue of any chimney stack or heating system? Nope, you're not required. But I tend to when I have access. And I do it consistently for all of my clients. And when I do, on an old house, it's kind of like a lot of fun. I see that there's a big hole here. It's a gaping hole. There's a defect, a material defect here. I use my camera to zoom in, and There. So there's damage to the flue there. The flue liner is damaged. So that's, to fix that, it's a few $1,000s. That's a material defect. So I'm going to call that out because it's not safe either. Destroying things. A lot of the material that pops off of the terracotta interior flue liner drops down and blocks the flue on very old homes. Chimneys without even a liner, clogging the flue is sometimes common, and that will cause backup of carbon monoxide into the home. Rust. I mean, if this was a brand new home, I'd really be jumping on that. This is a very old home, and we've got some problems coming up, I think. So, you know, it's a bit cosmetic. It's going to be your call. It's certainly not a material defect as is defined by the standards of practice, but I'm going to find it and I'm going to put it in my report. And the paint condition on wooden components of the exterior, as seen from the exterior, are in terrible shape. The paint surface, the wood condition, the condition of the wood components, exposed to the weather, it's rotting. The window panes are loose, single pane windows, very old home, 50, 60-year-old home. No double glass, no insulated, and the putty is coming off. And if it's that old, then the paint itself probably has some lead content in it. I became a lead hazard risk assessor, not a lead paint inspector. I hate that job, inspecting for paint and not being able to communicate your findings. A lead hazard risk assessor has more power than a police officer, because your job is to protect children from ingesting lead content in the paint, in paint dust. So I think it's a 5-day class from the EPA trainers. Be a lead hazard risk assessor and help some children out. But on an older home, paint tends to crack and weather, and if it checks and breaks in a certain pattern, you can probably guess that it has lead content in it, even without testing it. Again, I like to look at where walls meet, where there's an intersection, where this wall meets the roof. I love to look at the step flashing, and the siding is being used as the counter flashing, and there is a bit of a clearance. I'm not too concerned because it's aluminum siding. And then I follow the path of water. I think how rain hits this structure and moves around it and away from it. And the gutters are filled with debris. So how do I find defects here? Think about the path of water. How does water fall off the structure and move away? How is it controlled? And there are bumps and lifts and little things in the roof that I did not see when I was on it, looking down. And how do I find defects here? I look back. So look back at the system. If you inspected this system, maybe you're too close to see the big picture. Again, move back and check it out. So when I was done with the roof inspection, I came down off my ladder, I got into the front yard, and I looked back, and you can see what's going on, especially at a certain angle. So we have some shingles that don't look flat, and it looks like some roofing nails are backing out. No big deal, can be easily repaired. I don't think it's a structural problem. Follow the path of water. The downspouts should be diverting water away from the house, and it's not. They are not. They're dumping gallons, hundreds of gallons of water during a rainstorm right next to the structure of the house. And the gutters are filled with debris. So how do I find defects here? Before I tell you what the defect is, let me see if anybody's asking questions. What's the staining? The staining is black algae. No big deal. It's cosmetic. But again, Marlene, thank you for that. You got it. Thank you for the opportunity. Jesse, what's the staining on the roof? Yep. So here's a defect because what's this garbage can lid doing here, right? No big deal. It's a garbage can lid. It's common, I guess. I don't know why it's in the yard, but look for the unusual. So if you lift the garbage can lid, that's the main sewer line. And that's supposed to be a vent pipe. And right there is the house trap. Maybe that's the house trap, or maybe it isn't, or maybe it's just a clean out. I'm not sure. But usually every house with the main sewer line has a trap that prevents gases from the street main, sewer main, which is huge, prevents those gases from coming up into the house, right? So there's a trap somewhere between the house and the street. And that's probably it. At the trap, there's usually a stack that comes up, and it's called the vent. So it ventilates right in the yard. You can't do anything with it. It's supposed to come up above the yard surface. And I guess we missed a cap here or something, and put the garbage can lid on top of it. That'll work. So you find defects sometimes by moving the usual things, just with your hand and moving it away, or moving it in a different position, or turning it on, or turning it, or opening it. That's what my job is supposed to involve. Like, I move things, I touch things, I turn the thermostat using normal operating controls, I lift garbage can lids in the backyard. Don't walk over these things. It's okay to open something or lift something, especially if it's not even taking it apart. So that was a cool find. I thought that was kind of cute. So my concern here is the low slope of the grade and how water is not being diverted away from the house. So in my head, I'm just shaking my head, thinking to myself, I might have a lot of fun in the basement. Or maybe it's a crawl space. I don't know yet. But there's probably going to be water penetration because I have a concrete masonry unit house. The CMUs, concrete masonry units, the concrete blocks, the foundation of the house I can see is made out of concrete blocks. And it's not parged very well above grade. I can see cracking. And if there's water being dumped right next to the foundation, man, I'm going to probably bet everything that I'm going to have a lot of fun with water and moisture in the crawl space or basement. So how do I find defects here? Like, what is supposed to be here? Like, I see concrete blocks, but they're kind of like just laying and they're embedded in the ground and it looks like it's moved a little bit and some kind of old historic kind of structure thing. Well, if I compare this window to a similar window on the other side of the house, that's what it's supposed to look like. So, I get it now. So there's supposed to be a window well here, and it has just deteriorated into nothing. So I'm not sure what's in there, if that's a basement or a crawl space, but that's the yard right at the window. So you know that there's water penetration coming in there. Imagine snow. This is a cold climate, right? A foot of snow melting and going right in. I don't know what's going on in that basement. I can't wait to get in there. But I use comparisons, similar things. This thing is supposed to look like this, and it doesn't. And then I move around the house in a pattern, and I look away. So there's a great picture where I look about 20 feet away, then I move closer to about 5 feet away, and then I move in really close. That's how I use my infrared camera, by the way. When you use infrared, and you go into a home, especially with low-res imagers, you start off, if I was inspecting this room, you start off away, far away, and then you move in about halfway, and then you move in within reach, right? And I actually am taking pictures at every point. So I take a picture. Taking a picture forces me to find defects, forces me to look at everything, and defects pop up. Halfway through, take another picture, and touching it, if I can get that close, another picture. And if I'm touching it, if I'm up close and there's a problem, I'm going to see it. Here's my infrared camera. So this is a FLIR C3. The FLIR C2 was upgraded, so now I have a FLIR C3, and it's so much fun. And this tool, along with other tools that I have here, will help a home inspector do a better job. But you have to be trained on how to use the infrared camera. And InterNACHI provides infrared training, online and live classes. So I get up close and I'm seeing all this parging of masonry. It's not really a major structural concern because it's just a landing on the exterior door. but I love it, taking pictures. And so I'm about halfway through my exterior and roof system inspection. Did the roof, did the exterior, and I know I've got a lot of fun. This house is going to be a lot of fun when I get even deeper into it, because I know I've got problems, defects. And in my head, I'm trying to figure out what are the material ones, what are major, what are minor, what are cosmetic. I want to give my clients, I just don't want to list all the problems I found and categorize them equally. I want to list them by severity, give them an idea of what's really, really important and what's not so important, because we have a lot of defects. This house probably had, if I just listed them all equally, probably 200 defects, right? But you want to categorize, you want to identify the material ones, the ones that you both observe and deem to be material. So structural problems. So how do I find defects on the exterior? Well, I move in the same direction around the house. I tend to go counterclockwise, and I do it twice. So imagine this. I'm on the roof. I'm early, right? With my ladder, I get up on the roof. I take pictures. I'm writing my inspection report with my either my mobile device. I mean, I don't know if you do mobile devices, but it really speeds up your inspection. We've had classes on this about using your iPhone or Droid and your pad. And this one I kind of like because you stick your hand in it and it kind of spins around, so you can use your report, landscape or portrait. And I'm writing my inspection reports. It comes with a stylus. This is a Apple product. And I'm writing my inspection report while I'm on the roof. Before I step on my ladder to get down, before I get down on the ground and start my exterior inspection, I'm done writing my defects of the roof. I'm done writing my report for the roof system. And I'm allowed to now do the exterior. And I tend to go around with my client, around the exterior, once, quickly, counterclockwise. I push them into the home, tell them take a look around, see what's going on. I'll be with them in just a minute. And then I do another loop around the second time, same direction, counterclockwise around the exterior. And now I'm looking in detail at all the things that I need to inspect, right? Far away, midway, up close. In the same direction, same pattern for every home, over and over and over again. I don't do it randomly here and there, and I walk over here and walk over there, and oh, look at that. And here. Same thing over and over again. Why? Because when you do something in a pattern and something unusual pops up, it'll pop up. If something unusual is in the middle of your loop around the house, it'll pop. It'll literally pop right in front of your face. You go, oh, there's a problem. Haven't seen that before. And it isn't because you're doing something different. It's because you're doing something the same pattern, the same way, the same. Okay? So use the same tools, the same way you go around the house, consistency, and the anomalies will jump right out at you. Like this. I always inspect the landings, every landing I inspect, especially at the egress. Remember, you can have a step at the egress if there's a 3-foot flow of traffic, right? 3 feet away from the door. It's one of those code things. We're not code inspectors, but I'm looking at every egress so that there aren't any trip hazards. And I'm looking at the siding, and I use my hand to find defects. If I'm touching something, man, that is pretty close. I don't need to get any closer than that. Within reach, that's close enough. And usually when I'm within reach of something, a defect will pop out at me. Can't possibly inspect from 20 feet. You have to get in close. You also think about how elderly, our senior citizens, our older generation, how we take care of them, and our children. How do we take care of children? So there are a few things that I do. I imagine my child playing at the window. This is an open window. And she just opened up the top sash, and because this is a double hung sash window, and that electric line is inches away from that window. I can't believe it. Cannot believe an electrician would actually install an electric line that close to a window that could be used by a child. Insane. That is insane installation. So it's a It's a defect that I both observe and deem to be material because it poses an unreasonable risk to someone who lives in the house. A child opening up the window may grab that live electric line, and that's it. We're done with that one. And I don't hold back, as you can tell. I don't hold back. I don't soften my reports. If anybody wants to argue with me, that's great. We can argue about keeping children safe and human beings safe in our homes. That's a great discussion. I'm not going to refer back to the licensed electrician. I don't care who it is. Another licensed electrician needs to come in and make that safe. There needs to be a clearance there. And I'll put that in the report. Just like that. So never hold back, particularly when you're on the side, erring on the side of your client's safety. So there are cracked window panes, single pane windows, storm windows, very easy to fix and replace. I'm going to identify that the windows are old, deteriorated, weathered, cracked putty, potential lead paint, all that stuff. And maybe if I was buying the home, I wouldn't freak out. I was in an older home with windows just like this. And every year we invested a little bit in replacing the windows with an upgraded windows. But you don't do that first to save energy. You do things like air sealing and insulating to save energy and be comfortable. Windows are second, third priority. So there's exterior components. That is a typical indication of lead content in exterior paint at an older home. The way it cracks there. So how do you find defects here? Well, you think about ancillary inspections. So if I was at this home, I would turn to my client and say, I see indications of lead content in exterior paint. I know that we have children here. It's not good for anybody, particularly children. While I'm here, would you like me to do a lead hazard risk assessment? And I made more money doing lead hazard risk assessments than home inspections. So my lead hazard risk assessment was $500. And I could do one in probably 45 minutes. And it helps save children's lives. It really does. So think of ancillary inspections. Don't just be a home inspector. There's a great opportunity to be a radon tester, a mold tester, a wood destroying organism inspector, roof inspector. We have over 45 additional types of certifications available for InterNACHI members. And those certifications, the training and certifications and examinations and logos are all online and free for our members. So think of ancillary inspections. That's how you find other defects. When you're trained to look for moisture intrusion, you'll be trained to look for moisture intrusion. You'll find more defects related to moisture intrusion. You'll know what you'll be inspecting in a home. So, as you can tell, I take a lot of pictures. We're at picture 105, 105 pictures, and I'm not even done with the exterior. And I love finding wood rot that allows my screwdriver to go through it. And I don't hide this. I actually put pictures like this in my inspection report, and I expect to be congratulated for finding wood rot. Some homeowners will complain that I caused wood rot with my screwdriver. Nope, the screwdriver just went in nice and smooth like butter. It goes in, when you stick it in the wood rot, it goes in like butter and it stays there, and I'll take a picture of it and I'll put that defect in my inspection report. And a picture's worth 1,000 words. It shows where it is and what the problem is. You should never be able to stick your screwdriver through a wooden component of the home. So if you're thinking about children at that electric line near the window, and you're thinking also about elderly people or senior citizens, how to keep them safe and universal access, this could be in your inspection report. It's in mine. If I see more than one step without a handrail, if I see 2 steps, if you got to take 2 steps to get in your house, this one literally 3, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2 to get to the landing, 3 to get in, and there's no handrail. So for me, I count it as 3. Now, there's a code inspector who works in my neighborhood who will come in and say, by code, this is okay, right? Well, I'm a home inspector. Thank goodness I'm a home inspector. I got the right adjective. I'm a home inspector, not a code inspector. As a home inspector, you can call out these things. And as a home inspector, I called out this a lot. If there was more than one step without a handrail, I called it out. I was really strong on safety and access. If an 80-year-old woman can't get into her own home, I'm going to find that problem because I'm really particular about having my grandmother get into her own home without falling over, right? So more than one step for grandma, I want a handrail. It has to be really secure. How many pounds is it supposed to hold? A handrail is supposed to hold at a stairs in any direction? Right. You should know that. A big guy like me leaning on a handrail is supposed to be able to not fall over, not fall through, right? So code is important to know because it's kind of like the standards of practice. It's a standard to which you base all of your knowledge and apply that knowledge in your inspections. So code here, I disagree with it. I don't care what the code inspector says either. In my opinion, I want that 80-year-old grandmother to have a handrail when there's more than one step to get into her own home. Getting up close, you can see my hand. My hand is in a third of the pictures, as you can tell, because I don't have time, by the way, to draw an arrow. A lot of software allows you to draw circles and arrows and drop shadows and colors, and I don't have time for that. I use my hand because I'm taking over 100 pictures now. I'm at picture 108. I don't have time for arrows. So I use my hand as an arrow, and I touch the defect. So that allows me to identify what the defect is, and it allows me to put it in scale as well. When my hand's in there, you can see what the scale is. And then I can talk about the major displacement, movement, settlement of a structural component of the home, the foundation of this rear side porch structure, right? And it's just fallen apart. And why do you think it's fallen apart? Well, one of them could be settlement caused by the lack of controlling water away from the house. So water's just being dumped by the house right next to the foundation. And sure enough, not by coincidence, the foundation of the structure is being affected. Has a lot of the walks as well, the sidewalks. These are all trip hazards. If you're old, you tend to slide your feet across surfaces when you walk, and these are all trip hazards. Trip hazards for kids too. Kids tend to trip over these things. I do as well. Yeah, you get the idea. A lot of things are old and the wooden components are worn out. But this was an access door. I think it's underneath this side porch. So I'm gonna get in there. I can't get in, right? It's just stuffed with things. There could be some major defects in the back, but thank goodness I'm not required to find it, especially if I'm restricted. So that's a restriction of my inspection. I'm gonna make sure I document it, and I can't find anything that's back there. I have no idea what's going on back there. I'm not required to pull that out and start cleaning things and brushing things off to find things. Yeah, so, I think you get the picture. There's my step ladder. So I bring a step ladder, tall ladders to get up on the roof, step ladders, and crawl gear. And there's a structure, there's the attic structure above that screened-in porch structure on the side of the house. GFCIs, all exterior receptacles need to be GFCI protected. I touch every storm door and every door and every egress. I see an old key, deadbolt. I bet it's interior keyed. That's a hazard. I turn on all the fixtures, all the faucets, flush all the toilets, run all the shower heads. This is a cold climate, so that has to be frost-free, and it's not. It's not a frost-proof hose bib. All exterior receptacles have to be GFCI protected and weather protected. I want to know where the dryer is in relation to the dryer exhaust. So that's a typical dryer exhaust. It's going outside, that's great, but I want to know where it's connected on the inside. We have a really great training article about inspecting ventilation, vents, exhaust vents for bathrooms and kitchens and dryers. Yeah, so that's the beast right there. It holds oil, and if it starts to leak, that's not a good thing for the environment. And so all the rust, I'm calling it out. I want somebody to come in, scrape it off, and they could do a pressure test. So it's like inflating a balloon to see if it bursts. So you want to pressure test the oil tank. And there's legs, and the legs are on blocks that are moving because they're just resting on the ground. It's really a terrible installation. I love when an oil tank is inside the house. So, and the gauge is not working, or it's empty. And if it's empty, I can't run the heating system. That's an inspection restriction. Electrical line, it's upgraded, but I don't like that, right? And I don't want to hear about, well, it's technically above at the top of the mast is technically above the window. That's code. I'm not a code inspector. Grounding. And we're going to go to the detached garage next. And I want to do this quickly because I see 1 hour has gone by, and I'm not even sure if we're halfway through the slides. So I get up on the roof again, just like the house inspection. And this roof is the same condition as the house roof. That's great. But there's a little section in the back of the garage, detached garage, that I inspect. I inspect all detached garages and carports and attached garages. And that shingle roof is in poor condition. Here I am again on the side of the roof. How do I find defects at the roof? Well, I go to the edges and the penetrations and the flashing areas and where things intersect and penetrate through. And on the edge, the rake edge, there's no drip edge flashing. Thank goodness, because, hey, I found it's 2 layers. And the top layer, two means 2 layers. The top layer is in poor condition, really poor condition. As you can see, just from weathering, there's holes through the materials. There's nails coming through. It's in bad shape. And the shingles are actually curling up from old age. Missing downspouts. Damage to the siding, which is asbestos cement siding. I'm going to guess. And it really is a guess. All the indications look like it's, asbestos content within the cement siding. No big deal for when the house was built. You can repair it. Sometimes the repairs look great. Sometimes they don't match up very well. But it's no big deal. You can side over it as well. Or the EPA tends to treat asbestos and lead in the same kind of general way. A rule of thumb is if you don't touch it and it can encapsulate it, that's great. If you start to remove and clean things up, that's when you need a remediation professional. And I don't like the siding being so close to the ground. This is the detached garage. Still, it's a structure. I don't like how I see wooden components within inches of vegetation, daisies, flowers, and the siding components are damaged or falling off. This is all terrible things. I tend to smile because I know I'm going to get some really good stuff to inspect when I get into the house. And again, how do I inspect this defect? The defect is I see that the attached shed roof on the back, remember with the terrible roof on the top, the wall, the load-bearing wall, is not plumb. And if you're looking up close within 3 feet, you may not see that this wall is out of plumb. But if you step back and look, you can see it. It's pretty obvious. It was obvious to me during this inspection. So I just put up my hand. I don't have time to draw little lines, plumb lines. I just put up my hand, and that's my indication that this thing is leaning over. And there it is. Wow, that's great. If you follow the load path, anomalies will pop out at you when there's something wrong, and it's observable. You observe it. You can see it. So my job is to report things that I both observe and deemed material. If I didn't observe it, not required to report it. If I didn't deem it material, it wasn't material to me when I observed it, right? I'm required to report things that I both observed and deemed material. If I didn't see it, can't report upon it. This one I saw, took a picture of it, material defect. And I found it because I think of load-bearing paths. How does the weight of the roof come down? Well, it comes down through the stud walls. Well, is there a bottom plate? Yep. Is it observable to me? Yep. I observe it. I see it. How's it attached to the foundation structure? Not well at all. It's really great. I just enjoy finding material defects like this. So it's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty neat how water moves foundations up and wooden components can slide off. Literally, that's what happened. And just cracked. And that is water pressure. There's hardly any load that could crack a concrete masonry unit in half, long ways. But I would say it's probably water. Really cool stuff. That's what makes being a home inspector fun. And then sharing that. I would post that. I would post this image on Facebook. It's not revealing anything confidential, but it's a really cool thing. I would say this is what I found today at an inspection in Boulder, Colorado, and my name is Ben Gromika from Peach Inspections. Give me a call. Or Big Ben Inspections. Give me a call. Right? And I'd post that. Facebook, Google loves original content that is rich, not something boring, not copy-pasted information. So you get the picture. This detached garage has problems, especially with the siding, the exterior components. Now I'm in the garage. The concrete floor, surprise, surprise, is all cracked, not sloped properly, in poor shape. The wooden structure is doing well, except for that shed roof foundation problem, but it's filled with problems. If there's a defect behind that, am I required to report upon that defect? Nope. Did not observe it. There are inspection restrictions, and I want to make sure that those restrictions are communicated in my inspection report. But I do like to get in there if I can. Get around there with my flashlight. You need a really good flashlight. I get this from inspectoroutlet.com. It's a really good flashlight, really high powerful flashlight. And you could adjust the brightness, intensity. So I don't know how to show that, but there's low, medium, high, super high. Kind of fun. Get a really good flashlight. Even though a flashlight's not required by the standards of practice. We can talk about that later. So we have another poll. I think we went over this already. Are you supposed to find every defect? It's really a yes or no. So if the house has 30 defects, are you supposed to find every defect? Is that your job? To find every defect? All right, I'm going to stop it because it's overwhelming that you know the answer. So no, you're not required to find every defect. If you observe the defect and you found it to be material, yep, you're required to report it according to the standards of practice. And that is the minimum. I do more than I go beyond that. I try to find as many problems as I can, and I try to categorize it for my client down to cosmetic imperfections, flaws that can be wiped up and repainted to minor defects, major defects, and material defects. So good job. Let's see. So we're continuing. Yep, never saw a fuel line from the top of the tank. That is one of the, lost audio. Sorry about that. Sorry, James. It's back. Good. James says, Ben, I spoke with several realtors here, and I get the feeling that they do not want an inspector that is too diligent. May cost them a sale. Any advice? Yeah. One of my greatest days was when I fired a real estate agent. We told him, I'll say his name, John. No, it wasn't John. You're fired. And he laughed. You can't fire me. I don't work for you. He didn't get it. Like, you know, I'm never going to do an inspection that you are on the transaction. And when you're on the transaction of the real estate, I'm not coming to the inspection because I do not want to work 10 feet near you. Because if you're going to tell me to go easy on this inspection, then I do not want to be a part of you. You're just going to get both of us in trouble. What I want to do is find those real estate agents that I have a good relationship with, a professional relationship, and they respect what I do, and they realize that I'm on the side of the client, and I do very good inspections, and I'm fair, and I'm consistent. That's basically, and if I have a defect, and it's big, I'm gonna explain it with a nice smile on my face. I'm not gonna get all freaky, and I'll put it in the report as something that needs to be repaired, and then I'll go on my way, right? I'll coach, I'll advise, I'll encourage my clients to get it fixed or negotiate to be fixed, but rarely has there, I don't think I've ever killed a deal, right? I mean, that's the general criticism, that home inspectors kill the deal. In my opinion, there's hardly anything you could say to stop a real estate transaction from going through when your client has fallen in love with their dream home that they found. They spent months finding a home, right? Months, driving around, looking online, talking to people, going to open houses, walking through, choosing a house that they like, right neighborhood, school system, taxes, price, location. Oh, and they go through, they probably went through the home once or twice. They finally put a contract through, and then they get a home inspector just to see if there are any major holes in the roof or things like that, major problems. Just tell me if anything major here, because I found my dream home and I'm about to buy it. Tell me if there's something that I can't see. Basically, that's your role, right? Because they've fallen in love. There's hardly anything you can do to pull somebody out of that relationship that they've already built with their dream home. They found their dream home and they're about to buy it. Hardly anything you can say. And if you tell that to your real estate agent, the second thing I would do is all the real estate agents that I worked with, I simply asked them, what would be your ideal home inspector? Or what would be your ideal home inspection? How does that look? What do you want to see? What's the report look like? How do you want your inspector to communicate? What's your preferred method of going about this? Just ask them. And if it's in agreement with you and your services, work with them. If it's counter, don't work with them. That's my advice. If they want softball things and they want no matter what you see, just don't talk about that too much, don't talk about the structural problem that you just found too much, let's just say something, let's go on, because I got a boat payment, right? I don't want to work with that person. And that just freed me up. Now, I just, animal. That's what you should be. You should be engaged. You can't wait to inspect a home and just put it out there in a consistent, fair manner. Identify the problems that you both observe and deem material and move on. Anybody who is counter to that, you want to get rid of them as fast as possible. And if you have to fire a real estate agent, do so. Yeah, I never hold any punches. I hate fuse boxes. I hate it when an electrician says, well, it's still functional. I don't care. Fuses are so antiquated. It's like telling me riding a horse is a great way to get to work. Yeah, it worked 100 years ago, but this doesn't work anymore for multiple reasons. I mean, geez, stick a finger in there. So anytime I see a fuse, I'm basically flagging it. At a distribution panel, I'm flagging it. Replacing it. I'm just calling it defect that needs to be replaced by an electrician. Like the fish tank. Structural problems all over the place. I mean, this is a load-bearing component, a load-bearing post at a corner of a structure, of a detached structure, and that foundation is just, that's a mess. So I'm not sure if this should be repaired or left as is, but I really enjoy it. So I'm looking, and this is actually the bottom of the post. I don't know if you can see it in the picture, but there's the bottom of the post there. And it's an inch above the foundation. So that's kind of cool, the footer. It's just heaving, and it was a really great learning experience. This whole corner just heaved. That footer foundation, I don't even know how deep it is. Probably not below frost line in this cold climate. How do I find defects here? There's a lot of defects here. This is great. Love this house. How do I find defects here? I mean, it's obvious. There's some obvious stuff. If you don't see the obvious things, that's okay. We have training for you. No big deal. Come to the House of Horrors. We're building one in Florida. So in California, in Alberta, that's our plans. We have these houses of horrors that you can apply your knowledge on homes that are just for training purposes. So in here, if I can go somewhere that's uncomfortable for the homeowner, that means that that area probably has not been attended to, and everything breaks down and wears out and leaks eventually. Just naturally, things gain entropy. Things degrade and break down all by themselves. And if the homeowner hasn't been there for home maintenance, routine home maintenance, it's likely filled with a lot of great stuff that you want to find. So here, obviously I'm in the crawl space. We're not in the basement. And remember those window wells, especially that one where that was degraded and I thought water would be coming in? Well, here's the window. And so water's coming in. This pen is too big. Boop. Let's erase that. Let's try again. So here's the window. Water's coming in. This is a dirt floor, looks like. Dirt floors should not be exposed in a crawl space. There are wooden components lying on the dirt floor. That's like candy to termites. There is old pipe, duct pipe, laying in the crawl space. Should have been cleaned out. It's easy to clean it out. And it looks like the material that's wrapping around the galvanized pipe has asbestos content in it, and that comes from training. There's a lot of good training in the EPA. That looks like a sump pump discharge pipe that I did not see on the outside. I didn't see a discharge pipe, a sump pump discharge pipe. I missed a sump pump discharge? I don't think so. It must be buried. And I bet it is, because the ground, remember, on the outside, there was very little exposure of the foundation. So this is going downhill and through the second row of, I don't know where that's going. No idea. I could throw dye at the pump with water, discharge it out, run outside, try to find it. It's irrelevant. That discharge pipe should be above grade and far away from the house. This looks like a water entry pipe. Some low voltage wiring, or I don't know if it's electrical wiring. This is a crawl space. It's ventilated. This should be sealed and insulated. This floor is cold, I bet, in the wintertime. This wall should be insulated. There's moisture here. There's I don't know what that window is. Maybe that was a weather pane window. So many good things here, right? And there's a lot of stuff hanging down. So I'm going to look for moisture and mold problems. A lot of defects. And how do I find that? Oh, I go into areas that are uncomfortable for the homeowner. The heating system, the central furnace, is in the crawl space. What are the defects here? Well, just follow. Don't freak out. This is great. I mean, I'm just thinking about it now. This is really great stuff. Just follow the operating sequence of a furnace. So what do? You have to find the thermostat, normal operating controls. Find the thermostat, find the emergency shut-off switch, turn that off and on, turn the thermostat, turn the emergency shut-off switch off and on, let it recycle again in front of you at least once or twice, and see what happens. Then you follow the flow. This is a furnace, forced air furnace. You follow the flow of air, and you follow the heat source, the flames, and the carbon monoxide getting to the stack. That's what I would do. Where's the airflow coming? Well, it's coming here. That's where all the air for the furnace is coming into the furnace. So it's sucking up all this contaminated air, mildewy, smelly, moldy, damp air from the crawl space, and cycling it through the whole house so everybody could share it. And there's filters here. It's I forgot what they call it. It's a wrap filter. It's like that. It's at an angle. It's like a trapezoid. And these panels you're supposed to take off and take those filters out, right? And it's such a pain in the butt. You think the homeowner does this every month? They did this just before they did the filter. It's clean, just before I showed up. So we've got, this is an uncomfortable house because the circulation of the conditioned air, there are no returns. There's just one central return. And I'm not sure if the supplies are even getting to every room. Here's the service tag. I want to see when it's last serviced. If it hasn't been serviced within the last year and every year before that, I call it out. This is where the flames are. So here's the oil supply line going through a shutoff valve and a burner. And for folks who don't know what oil burners are, it's crazy. We suck oil from an oil tank. We turn it into we push it through a spray nozzle that atomizes it, turns it into a spray, and we ignite it with literally a flame or a spark. And flames shoot out of this burner into a heat exchanger. Sometimes it's a pot. Sometimes it's a metal container. And it heats up a heat exchanger, really hot, and the flue gases go through the heat exchanger and go out through a chimney. Remember the defect at the chimney? And then air, a circulating fan, blower fan. This is the sequence of operation. Blower fan turns on, and when the heat exchanger gets to a certain temperature, you're ready to circulate air, sucks all that wonderful crawl space air through the heating system and through the supply ducts, which are not insulated, not sealed, not insulated. Wow, that's really cool stuff. That's really great. And there's some operating other components of the heating system that are typical, like high temperature limit switch and things like that. But there's the emergency shut-off switch above the furnace within the floor joist bay. There is another shut-off switch. It's a fuse cartridge. That should be replaced. Don't like fuses, you know me. I love the writing from the HVAC contractor on what he or she is supposed to be checking for, the levels of CO2 and the temperature. That's the burner there with a little temperature switch, a couple of those. Service tag, I always take a picture of the service record. That sometimes defects pop up when you see that. And look for the flame. If it's a fuel burning appliance, I always take a look for the flame or where that flame chamber is. And right here, obviously, you see the defect. This cover must have fallen off or opened up, and heat has come out and scorched the exterior of the HVAC furnace unit so much that the manufacturing plate has melted, and there was some writing here and it's been burned over. It's essentially an open flame when this thing turns on. So careful, don't hurt yourself during inspections. But this is a material defect. That's a material defect. So that's it's a hazardous condition. It's the flue pipe. It's not sealed well to the top of the furnace, the heat exchanger area. And we want all that carbon monoxide and gases going right up through the flue pipe, connection pipe, and outside. There's the damper. It's probably not adjusted well. Damper shouldn't be swinging at an angle. That should be horizontal, where the two hinges, right? Two pins of the hinges should be not at an angle, but level. So that's fun. And there's the connection to the chimney stack. No clean out. I can't tell what's going on, but we have major problems in the flue that we saw from the roof. And we're not required to inspect the flue, but I did. So there's where all the cold air is entered into the furnace. And there's the nice clean filters that they just replaced a few minutes before I arrived. It should be elevated off of the ground. I don't like masonry bases. I want this unit to be hung from the floor structure above, because masonry, especially concrete blocks, resting on ground with moisture intrusion into the crawl space tends to absorb moisture and wick up and then affect the bottom of the furnace itself. There's old ductwork that was just left, and you could, if you're trained, you could tell if you suspect asbestos material within the insulation and wrap around the ductwork. That's hazardous. It really needs to be cleaned up by a professional, a trained professional. There's a hole in the floor. Inside the hole is a place for water to collect and pump out, but they don't have a pump in this hole. It's difficult to get around. I would like to see the old original furnace. That would have been neat. It must have been right there. It looks like it was coal-fired, but I can't imagine it being coal-fired. So great pictures. Should be cleaned up, taken care, attended to. The foundation itself is okay, except for the moisture penetration. The crawl space floor is sometimes gravel, a little bit of concrete pour, slurry, but mostly exposed ground, and that's not good for anyone. There you go, that's just exposed mud. Didn't see any termites. There's another hole that was dug by hand with some blocks and to contain the water to hold a sump pump. Some pumps in there. The foundation is okay. The wooden structure is fine. It's not sealed or insulated. The crawl space. So ideally, you want to the best practice now. We know more about building science and how buildings how to handle crawl spaces. You handle a crawl space just like a full basement. That's basically how I explain it. A crawl space is just a short basement. So what do you do in a basement? Well, nice concrete floor, vapor barrier, concrete floor. The walls could be insulated or not, depending on some code and some standards, and maybe if it's if it's underground foundation, you may not want to insulate it. It could be insulated, but the floor structure above is sealed and insulated, and then it's if it's a ventilated crawl space, you want to separate the house from the crawl space, ventilated crawl space. But nowadays we're closing off the crawl space and treating it like a conditioned room. So you want to seal some things up. You want to seal up the perimeter, insulate it, not open vents from the outside. Maybe some fresh air or some heat recovery ventilation units to bring in fresh air into the house. But we're not opening up vents anymore. And we're insulating and controlling it, heating it and controlling it. So think of the crawl space as a short basement. How would you control this area? How would you condition it? How would you control the outside air or humidity levels? So it's basically insulating the outside walls. If it's going to be a ventilated crawl space, then you've got to separate that floor with air sealing and insulation and vapor retarders. And then there's the ductwork in the furnace. You want to seal and insulate. You want to seal at least so you can control the supply of the conditioned air. All that crawl space, that juicy crawl space stuff, how do you seal and insulate and ventilate a crawl space, is online through InterNACHI articles and training courses. We have an advanced crawl space video course. That's a really good one. Water penetration, obviously. The sump pump Manual float, I lift the float, discharge it outside, I don't know where it's going, right? Goes out the wall, underground, somewhere, not good. The pipe is not supported. So not good, no, not even a check valve. And there's a pit, I think for a crawl space, or this was the original heating system location with coal and a coal chute, but I'm not sure. I just don't understand what the structure is all about. So how do you find defects in a home like this? With other systems, well, you follow what comes into the house. You follow the electricity that comes in, you follow the egress doors that come in, you follow the water that comes in. I follow what water comes in. Is it a private well or is it public water? And is there a shutoff valve? And then you follow water out. Sewage, effluent, waste, gray water. How does it exit? How does it leave the property? And so when you find water coming in, you follow the pipes going to the fixtures, and you think about sewage going out, wastewater going out, gray water going out. You find these pipes, and this is a typical problem with cast iron drain pipes that are very old, and they corrode from inside out. And this is actually discharged, slowly dripping. Looks like stalagmites, stalactites, can't remember which it is, from a cast iron pipe. So the cast iron pipe needs to be repaired here. And all of that juicy water and mud around this sewer pipe going through the foundation wall could be effluent, could be sewage. It's likely the water penetration coming through the wall around the sewer pipe. The rust on the cast iron is no big deal. There's another area of corrosion and leaking pipes. So you follow, how do you find defects on plumbing? You follow what's coming in and then follow what's going out. That's what I do. And there's a strap from a new fixture, maybe the laundry, because I see dryer dust. So what else enters the system? So I'm in a crawl space system, and a house is a system of interdependent parts. One part affects others. So I believe that the dryer is above me right here, and it's discharging into the crawl space. It's not going outside. Remember that vent, dryer vent on the outside? It's not even connected. It's there. So it's disconnected. The dryer vent is blowing warm, moist, lint air into the crawl space. It's been doing that for years. So one system has penetrated into another. It's like inspecting the roof and understanding that the plumbing system penetrates through the roof system, right? So you want to inspect where one system penetrates through another or intersects another. So this is the laundry affecting the crawl space system. That's how you find defects. Speaking of another system, there's the attic, house attic. There's a panel in the crawl space, in the ceiling of the closet, and I can't enter this little triangle space, but there's some insulation. Somebody tried to add more insulation, fiberglass insulation, some trays at the soffit vents, but there are no soffit vents. And there are little knee walls in the top floor area. Remember with that kid reaching out the window and touching the electrical line? Well, there's that second floor in this kind of like a Cape Cod kind of house. And the attic access doors are not insulated, not sealed, so it's uncomfortable second floor. And it's filled with things that just are in my way. Can't see everything. Am I supposed to find every defect? Nope. I bet there's something good back there. Can't get to it. Insulation is installed improperly. There's just a lot of problems. The knee wall should be insulated, not the roof. Ideally, you want to insulate the knee wall and the floor structure and keep this attic space unconditioned, just like the outside air. In some places, because it's not insulated well, are just exposed. So they're heating the system, heating the house, and all that conditioned air is going right up through the roof. And it's only 2 inches thick. 2 inches of insulation in this cold climate house. Not good. And there are incandescents almost touching combustible materials in the attic. And you get the idea. So how do you find defects here? Well, you just look behind stuff. There's so much stuff in this house. If you look behind it and open doors, you get to see more stuff. So if you just follow your eyes and follow your camera and allow your hand to go in front of you, it's a lot of fun. But if there are restrictions, you should be able to document them with pictures because you can't see everything here. And so I'm doing some interior stuff, like there are no window locks. No window locks on the second floor. And the wiring is old. And there's no handrail going up to this area. How would a 70-year-old grandmother get up here? It's impossible. And know the difference between major problems and cosmetic things. In this house, I'm not going to touch a lot of cosmetic things because we have so many material and major defects. Flush all the toilets, run all the sinks, the showers, the tubs. There's an S-trap. That's not good. GFCI protection is required at the bathrooms. I run water everywhere. If there's a detachable shower head, man, I'm spraying it in all different angles and trying to get something to leak. That's my job. Nothing should leak. The tub shouldn't leak, no matter how I spray the handle. And the bathroom vent goes up through the roof. I didn't see a vent on through the roof, so it's exhausting into the attic space. Electrical panel on the interior of the home, 150 amp. Not required to take the panel off. I don't find any problems on the inside, so we're not really going to spend a whole lot of time here. Remember, find the water that comes in, and there's the main water shutoff valve. Comes from the crawl space up, and it's in this storage area, utility area, and it's just covered with storage. Can't even get to it. There's the water meter, there's the jumper cable, and there's the main shutoff valve. Electric hot water tank. Cold water coming in, hot water valve. You have to know the flow of the water coming into the home. How does it get to the water source? Hot water source. How does it get to the heating system? And how does it get to the hot water source? So water goes in, cold water, through a shutoff valve. There's an expansion tank. There's a TPR discharge pipe, hot water going out. And the expansion tank, I just drew this a few minutes ago. You have to think of the flow of water. So if there's a check valve with the water coming in, that means that there's a closed system. Inside the house, it's closed because that check valve is not going to allow water from the house to go back into the street system, essentially. So when water heats up, it tends to expand. And if it's a closed system, it's going to be a high amount of pressure that needs to be released somewhere. It's going to discharge out of the TPR valve or be expanded into the expansion tank. So you want an expansion tank when you have a check valve in a closed system. And that's where the expansion tank goes. It's on the cold water line before the hot water tank, and then goes to the heating system, and it's related to the pressure. I have often found the mistake that plumbers have made when the hot water tank TPR valve is dripping and there's no expansion tank on a closed system with a check valve. It's an easy fix. Know your components. If you know the components of a system, you can check each component and look for a problem in each component, right? So the interior is okay, old. How do I find defects here? Well, I have the right tools. I moved the bed. I wanted to get to the window, so I scooched the bed with my knee, and shazam, there's water penetration coming through this wall. And that is affecting the, it's an indication of water intrusion through this window. And you do that by having the right tools. Oh, the flashlight, I showed you the tablet, right? The FLIR camera, the flashlight. This is a tick tracer. This is a basic tool that every home inspector should have. It shows the voltage on something. If you think a wire is live, don't touch it with your finger, touch it with that, and it'll tell you. This is a moisture meter. You can get all these tools from inspectoroutlet.com, inspectoroutlet.com. Non-invasive moisture meter. The pins are for probing into drywall, I would use my moisture meter here. I would probe the wood with the pins and non-invasive on the wall. That's after I use the infrared camera to see if there's indications of moisture intrusion. These two things go together, the infrared camera and the moisture meter. You look for anomalies with your infrared camera and you back it up to see if it's wet. Potential water problems with your moisture meter. The other tool I have here is the spectroscope. This is a tool. It's a extendable pole with your GoPro camera or mobile camera here and your device here. You can put a pad or a phone here and it wirelessly communicates. And then you can extend this pole up to the roof and you can inspect the roof or the chimney safely from the ground. So you can inspect any roof while standing on the ground. So that's a really great tool to have. Let's see. So let's go through the interior. Let's blow through the interior. Just a lot of cosmetic issues. Two-prong outlets, missing ground at the receptacles, potential lead problems. That paint there is chipped away and probably a lot of dust on the floor. So that paint needs to be encapsulated. Door is broken. Here's the laundry tub, hot and cold water. GFCI is missing. S-trap at the tub is no good. The laundry tub, thank goodness, discharges into the laundry. The clothes washer discharges into the laundry tub. That's good. There's missing braided mesh metal hoses at the clothes washer supply lines. Those black pipes are no good, and there's actually a bulge in that one hose, so that could burst. Old three-prong electric outlet for the dryer. And kitchen. Kitchen's the last thing I do because that's where I set up my computer at the kitchen table and I print out a summary sheet or the whole report if my client wants to wait. Run hot and cold water and dish sprayer at the sink. Missing GFCI. That GFCI did not test properly. I can't turn the oven on, but I can turn the stove on, the range. Two-prong receptacles at the kitchen. GFCI protection is needed, and some cosmetic things like the tile floor is in poor shape. Are there any questions? Sorry about the sound, folks. Hope that wasn't too bad. Sound goes in and out. I'm so sorry about that. Let's go to webinar. I'll talk to him. Yeah, it looks like the electric junction box by tags has no cover. Yep. Would you call it the insulation as potential asbestos? Yep. There's a lot of public domain information about asbestos. We have articles about asbestos, identifying asbestos. I would just disclaim it and wrap it around some cautionary notes that I'm not an asbestos inspector or something like that, but I suspect some materials, hazardous materials, and maybe a link out to more information by the EPA, if they're still with us. Do you put that many pictures in each report? Francis asks. There'll be probably 50 pages to my inspection report and probably about 6 images per page. So, over 100 images I like to shoot for. I'll take 400. I think there are 417 pictures, 400 pictures on this inspection. I'll give all of them to my client. We used to put them on disks. USB is good, or something cloud-based is fine. I want my client to have all of my pictures. I don't care. If I took a picture of a hole in the roof and I gave it to my client and I forgot to put that in the report, well, that's a problem, right? It has nothing to do with me sharing that picture. It has something to do with how I do my inspection reports, inspections. So I'm not hesitant in sharing those images or video. I used to take video of my inspections as well and share those videos, especially the video of the roof inspection, because I don't walk with my client on the roof. And I try to put as many pictures as I can in the reports, and we have lots of classes about report writing. This class isn't really about how to write a report, but you want to think about your brand and your marketing when you write a report. You want to be able to share your inspection report with a potential client and have them have all the information they need to make a decision about hiring you. I want my inspection report to be the best marketing piece that I make. That's why I work on it every day. Work on my narratives. Work on how it appears, how it flows. Is it easy to read, clear to understand? Does it have a lot of pictures? So I want that to be my best. Anyone looking at my inspection reports should be able to hire me based upon the information that they gather from that inspection report, any inspection report. They don't even have to get to my website or flyer. So that has to do with everything you do when you're doing an inspection has a lot to do with marketing and brand and services. Wouldn't making the crawl space a conditioned space decrease combustion air? Yeah, there's a lot of problems. So there's a lot of problems in a house. I would get an energy auditor in there. I would get a contractor to follow up, and I would get a blower door test too, if that was my home, because I know I'm going in there and I'm going to be uncomfortable. There isn't anything comfortable in that house related to the heating system, and I have to attend to the moisture intrusion first. First and foremost, I have to stop that moisture from coming into the home. Not just the siding, but the foundation and the roof stuff. So, and the chimney, and the sewer line, and the sump pumps, and all that stuff. I have to stop water from coming into the home, intrusion. And then figure out how I want to handle the crawl space. I want to treat it like a short basement. I don't want ventilation with the outside air. I want to condition that basement. So if I have to change the furnace, that furnace looked like it was on its last legs anyways. And it's not even it doesn't even have any returns. So it might be a good investment to replace that whole system. Why is S-trap no good and P-trap okay? Well, we have a really cool article and graphic about the S-trap versus P-trap. S-trap, well, the trap is this loop, and it's designed to hold water. It traps the water, but it also prevents sewer gases from coming from the sewer line out through the fixture. So that you want that trap. When you have an S-trap and you run water, sometimes suction will drain that trap of water. It'll just drain it out. You know, it's like ever take gasoline from your dad's car with the hose, right? The physics of suction allows you to drain that tank with that little hose. Same thing with the S-trap. When water is going through that S-trap, it just like continues and it empties the whole thing, drains that water trap. A P-trap has a horizontal extension to it. So the trap kind of looks like a P, and you draw a P and then you drop it sideways, and it kind of hangs down and it goes over for a little bit. And that prevents that suction of the trapped water. So P-trap versus S-trap, it's basically you want to keep that water in the trap to prevent sewer gases from coming out the drain. And I didn't throw my hands up in the air when I got an S-trap. You know, it's an easy swap. It's an easy fix. Why you can turn the oven on? Because there were things in the oven. There was stuff. There was cardboard things. I need it to be empty. Because if I leave something in the oven, turn it on 350 just to get it warmed up, and it's hot, and somebody comes in and grabs something, you know, people don't think, right? And someone's going to burn their hand. Why did you turn the oven on? And I have to explain all that. So if there's stuff in the oven, I don't turn it on. Dishwasher is different. If there are dishes, I don't care if they're clean or dirty. I'm running a short cycle, and I want that dishwasher to. It's fun when it leaks around the gasket. And then I turn on the range top, the stove, electric or gas, and I touch it. I turn it on just a little bit. And we had an issue way back where we left an oven on, right? One of the inspectors in the company left the oven on. So we have a rule now. You have to hold on to the oven door handle, and you can't leave until you're done inspecting that appliance. And that includes the hood exhaust and the microwave or anything else around that oven, okay? You have to hold on, and you can't let go of that oven door until everything is turned on and then off, and then you can leave. So it's kind of funny. You never want to leave an oven on. Do you not run the dishwasher? I do. I run the dishwasher through a cycle. Does InterNACHI have classes for lead hazard risk assessment? No, that's what we're getting into in the House of Horrors, because we can have fun with lead hazard risk assessments. And the EPA has a program for contractors to be careful with lead paint as well. And so in the House of Horrors, we're going to do that. You have to take a 5-day class. It's hands-on. Some of it's about half hands-on, half not. And it's lead hazard risk assessment is one of the most powerful positions for a home inspector, because the federal government grants you a lot of power. And you'll find that out in class. Being a lead paint inspector stinks, because you're hired typically by the lead hazard risk assessor. So you don't want to do the lead paint inspection, because by law, if you do, well, not by law, but I think the standard is if you're a lead paint inspector, you're not trained enough to diagnose and give recommendations. When you're lead paint hazard risk assessor, not only are you trained as a paint inspector, but you can provide recommendations. And there's this value of that service. Identifying whether there's lead content in the paint is not that valuable. Is it a hazard? And so being a lead hazard risk assessor allows you to answer that question. No one on the planet can answer that question unless you're a lead hazard risk assessor. Is there a hazard at the house? That's a powerful position to be in. It was a lot of fun. What are your summary categories? Summary categories. The software allows me to tag things that are material, big enough that they'll appear in the summary. So I want all the material defects for sure, according to the standards of practice. But I exceed the standards of practice in that I find other defects that are important to my client, and I'll call them major defects. I use category. You don't have to. This is just a personal thing. And it's not required by the SOP. But material defects is defined by the standards of practice. That's a term that you should be familiar with and what it is. And I use major defects, minor defects, cosmetic defects, and I define each one. And those are defined actually in the InterNACHI glossary as well. What do you recommend for two-prong ungrounded outlets? I tell them that they're not grounded, right? And that they're old, antiquated, typical for this age of home. But I would want my office, work office and bedroom, to have receptacles that are grounded properly. Now, there are cheap, inexpensive ways to get around it, like putting a GFCI at every ungrounded receptacle. I hear some electricians do that, but not me. I want modern grounded wires, 3 wires, white, black, and ground. What software do you use? I don't do home inspections anymore. I used to use an old software program. I recommend now going to Inspector Outlet and finding software that's listed there. We partner up with an e-commerce partner called inspectoroutlet.com. And on the left side, there's a tab for software. And these are all of the softwares that we like. I would say that number 1 and number 2 runners are Home Gauge and Home Inspector Pro. Home Gauge is good with PCs. Home Inspector Pro works well with Apple, I believe. They all have free trial downloads. I don't care what software you get. I highly recommend asking your software seller, vendor, to provide you a discount because you're an InterNACHI member. And if they don't provide you a discount because you're an InterNACHI member, second thing is your software should work on mobile devices. Because who has time to write software? Who has time to write reports at night? No one. So you should be writing writing reports as you go using software that works on mobile devices. So those are the two things. Make sure that they recognize your InterNACHI membership for a discount and make sure it works on mobile devices. Craig, I'll see you later. Mark, see you later. Kevin, what is your opinion on drone inspections for roof? Drones are for fun. If you want to use a drone, you have to be qualified and certified and listed by the FAA. There's a test. You got to take a class to pass that test, I hear. And then now you got a drone, right? And it wouldn't work where I live because where I live, there could be a gust of wind at 15 miles an hour within a second. And if that keeps going, say goodbye to that drone. And have you ever flown a drone in wind? It is impossible. It's just not safe. So drones are for fun. And I don't even know how much fun they are. I own one. It's, yeah. I'd rather use my ladder and the spectroscope. So I bet I can inspect a roof just as good, if not better. I would challenge somebody with a spectroscope and a drone. That'd be kind of fun. 2 inspectors, one with a drone, one with a spectroscope, and one with any kind of drone they got, and any kind of camera and device and software, and see if they can inspect how well they each inspect. You know, I bet the spectroscope wins because it's more reliable, and I can see more. I can walk around comfortably on the ground and look for things forever. You eventually have to land that drone and not run into anything. You can't get up close, and I can get up within an inch of a roofing nail. And a drone, you're not going to get up that close. There's no way. You can zoom in with a 4K camera, but I'm up close. In fact, if I touch the roof, I can probably touch it. I can have another adapter with a little tine or hook, and I can touch things. You can't touch it with a roof. So I think I would win. If you had a drone and I had a spectroscope, I'd beat you. I don't know how we would objectively figure that one out, but you know, be kind of fun. So that's my opinion. Drones are for fun and inspecting is more serious. Let's see. There's a lot more questions about P-traps and S-traps. It's no big deal, folks, but I would just Google the information, or we have a couple articles at InterNACHI's library. What's your take on water, heater, plumbing, insulation? Hot side only, both call. I understand from building scientists that insulating the pipes is a great idea, but not that great. I mean, if you're down to like getting really small amounts of energy efficiency controlled, you're down to there, right? But usually there's bigger fish to fry in a home related to home energy. And most of it has to do with air sealing and insulating the top part of the house, where all the energy naturally just goes out. So you want to make sure that ducts are mastic sealed and insulated in unconditioned spaces, and that they're located in right areas. And there's air sealing and insulation. I mean, you should get a blower door duct test, or at least a home energy score. First, we get a home energy score, and then maybe the blower door guy comes in. But when you're down to like insulating water pipes, I mean, you have to do all that stuff first. and then you can insulate the water pipes. It's not going to help much if you have essentially a large hole in your roof, allowing energy to escape. So I don't do the lower hanging fruit. I tend to look at the biggest things that could be corrected. It should be corrected first. Do you run clothes washer and dryer? No. Unless I have to diagnose something just for my own personal inspection procedure, like I'm trying to figure out where the dryer is going or something. But I don't test those appliances. Not required to, but I may want to exhaust some air out of the dryer just to diagnose where that dryer is going, where the hood is on the outside, and things like that. What software do you use on your? We went over that. Some software, drones, got to go, got to run. All right, sounds good to me. All right, everybody, thank you for coming to class. Go to NACHI TV and sign up for the next class. There's one next month and a month after that. And I will see you at the next class. Thank you all for coming. Hope you had fun. I'll see you later. Bye, everybody.